Hello everyone. So today we are going to be solving the problem of two sum on our Leetcode platform. So it is the very first problem and it makes use of topics like hash maps and arrays. So we're going to explore what all ways we can solve this problem and which is the optimal method. So first of all, let's read what the question says. It says that we're given an array of integers, which is nums here. I'm going to be solving this in C++, and then we have an integer that is target. So we are supposed to return the indices of the two numbers in that array such that they add up to the target. And they've given some examples here. For example, in this nums array, we can see 2, 7, 11, and 15, and the target is 9. So from seeing the array as humans, we can see that, okay, 2 and 7 here are returning 9. And the indices of these particular elements are 0 and 1. So because num 0 and num 1 add up to 9, we can return 0 and 1. So this is our ideal solution, and this is what will be accepted by Leetcode as well. And here there are some more problems. So let's explore what are the two ways we can solve this question. So two sum can basically be solved in two ways. One is our brute force method, and the second is our hash maps. So what do we understand by brute force? Brute force is basically when we are kind of going through the entire array and then we are running two loops into it. So one approach of mine could be that, okay, this is the array that has been given to me. Let me just traverse through this entire array and put a for loop on it. Then for each element, I again put a for loop for this entire array and see if this element matches up with this element to form the target element. This is a brute force method because we are going through the entire array and checking which one is actually the right solution, and then we are returning the indices. But the time complexity in this case is a lot. It is about O(n) square because we need to solve this problem in the most optimal time and the most optimal space that we are given. So brute force method would not be very appropriate because we are running two loops, so therefore the time complexity adds up to be O(n) square, and this might make us a little behind, and this might work for some small arrays, but it might not work for other bigger arrays. So let's try this brute force method out and see how it goes, how we can do that. So this is the first for loop that we will be using. So we have run a for loop from here to here, and then we say, and then we move another for loop. And this is the second for loop. So this is basically a case of a nested loop where we are running one loop from 0 to the num size index, and then we are running an inner loop for each of those indices to be checked with the other indice, right? With the other index. So now let's write our code, which is we have written the two for loops, and now if so we are putting an if condition to check if the two indices are adding up to the target, and then we can return right, and here we return. Now let's try and run this. So great. We have obtained the results here as well, but this is not the best method to do this problem, to solve this problem. So we have here, we've done everything needed. We've run two loops, and then we are checking for each of those combinations possible if it matches up to the target. Now let's come to the more optimal approach for solving this. We can see all the test cases are being matched and this has been accepted, but there's a better way to do it. Now comes the concept of hash map. So we are going to construct an unordered map here of the data type int comma int, and then we're going to say, okay, we're going to call this a map. And now what we are going to do is we're going to run one for loop. I is less than, and then we are going to check in this for loop for the map. So if the mapping of that particular element of target minus nums I exists, we are going to return it. Otherwise, we are going to feed some into it, and then we are going to return an empty vector. Now, let's see how it works. We're going to, first of all, we're going to write if here is here only, and if now let's try and run this. Oh, sorry, that's not return 0. We are already given. Yeah, that's what I figured. So we made an error here. Okay, now let's try this out. See, this worked out just fine in our case, and we made a hash map where we only used one for loop and we didn't make use of two for loops, and thus we decreased our time complexity very well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you understood how you can solve the very first problem of Leetcode, which is two sum.